There we go. And it is my distinct pleasure to bring up to the stage right now Hickok45. Wait a second. Hi, it's Pastor George from My Guns and My Religion. And Hickok45, who I never thought in a million years that I'd be speaking with. Hickok, I know you try to keep things secular and everything else, but I do appreciate everything that you do, and the microphone is all yours.
Okay.
Oh, watch out for that mic. Oh, wait. Listen, does anybody here have a 2-liter bottle of soda pop? If you do, keep, oh no, put it away, put it away, put it away. Taking the ammo with me, Hickok.
Hey, Hickok45 here. I was afraid you wouldn't recognize me without my earplugs. I better take them out, though, in case I say something brilliant. I wouldn't want to miss it. But don't expect that. You know, if you are familiar with the Hickok45 channel, that I'm mostly a rambler. And I actually have a couple of bullet points, so I don't ramble and act like I'm doing one of my radio shows. A little closer? Okay. Anyway, it's great to be here, and I've met so many of you that it's been wonderful. A lot of people locally and a lot of people who have come from afar to attend this, as John and I have. Really pleased to be here. This is, as I've been saying, one of the most special places I can imagine to do something like this, which is why we're willing to travel up here. I mean, how do you do any better than what's back there, you know? 1775, you know, some guy named George Washington was appointed commander-in-chief of the Continental Army right back there in that building, and about 12 years later our Constitution was hammered out right there in that building while he sat there in a chair that's still there and oversaw that for that summer of 1887, I guess. I mean, that's just amazing to me, and here we stand. Obviously all those fellows walked around these yards in this area, contemplated what they were doing, and you know, here we stand trying to continue that support. You know, oftentimes I'll use the phrase, I know you have too probably, well, I know our founding fathers are rolling over in their graves over this, and that's pretty commonly heard, especially the last couple of months and the last 4 or 5 years, right? Well, I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure they're rolling over in their graves. My guess is they're clawing at it, trying to dig themselves out of there so they can get up here and grab somebody by the scruff of the neck and straighten things out. But unfortunately, they can't do that. That's up to us. You know, I'm a teacher, at least I was. Well, I had the title of teacher. I don't know how much of a teacher I was always, but I taught for 29 years and retired yesterday, actually. And thank you. My students thank me for retiring. No, we had a great time. I've really missed them, and it was one of the hardest things I ever did walk away from that, but I did. And I was thinking, driving up here, about how in some ways our politicians are like students, because you know, one thing we need to do with them, first of all, we give them birth, you know, in a manner of speaking. We launch them, and then we have to oversee what they're doing. We try to provide them boundaries within which they can operate safely, you know, and when they misbehave, it's our job to discipline them, put them in timeout, or send them back home, whatever we need to do. And we need to keep that in mind. They really are like our children in many ways. They're not out there on their own doing whatever they want to. They are more like young children, and we have to remember that we are responsible for what they do, and we've got to hold them accountable, don't we? But we like to let them think they're in charge, but they're really not unless we let them be. A couple of things, again, as a teacher, I want to be constructive. We've had some great speeches and some folks that just made wonderful points. We all are able to make wonderful points now. I think all of us have become much better educated about our rights in the last few months, out of necessity if we have not, right? And we can speak to the facts. The facts don't lie. We know the reality of how many people lose their lives to firearms or cars or swimming pools. And there are, of course, a segment of people in this country who don't care what the facts are. Their lives are emotion driven. But we know the facts. We know the facts. We've got to do the right thing. Some things we need to do. I look at it as a short-term goal and long-term goal. Short-term, we've got to be ready, you and I and everybody you know who's involved in this fight, to be activated, to get motivated quickly whenever there's another incident, and we know there will be. As long as there are gun-free zones, they're going to happen. That's just human nature. We've got to get rid of the gun-free zones. I mean, that's the craziest thing I can think of. I've worked in one for 29 years, so I'm an expert. I'm an expert in gun-free zones and what it feels like to be there. And some of you too, that feeling when you might be a competent person, a confident person, someone who is very responsible with firearms, and yet you find yourself in an environment where you're just not allowed to have one, and it's not worth the risk going to jail, So I've been in that position for a long time, and it's pretty strange. I've had to drive 80 miles every day, 40 each direction. Is that 80, 40? Yeah, okay. So I told you I'm not too smart. But I've had to stop at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning at the ATM, or to get coffee, or to stop at Walmart, or wherever I might stop, totally unarmed all that time because of those gun-free zones. But we've got to mobilize and be ready whenever there is one of these incidents, because you know what's going to happen, of course, on the other side. They're all sitting there just waiting to get in front of a microphone like this when one occurs. We've got to be ready to write, call, email, scream, whatever it takes, make ourselves heard, make sure that we are continuing to stay in touch with our representatives, our senators. We've got to be there, not give that up. It is not over. We know that. And we've got to be ready to mobilize instantly and let them know, yeah, we know that happened in wherever, North Dakota, Texas, Florida. It's going to happen. There's a wacko out there right now sitting in his basement who feels mistreated, who wants to get even with the world for whatever reason. It will happen. We know that. And that's the price of freedom, though. Nobody here, I don't imagine, wants to live in a police state. I don't. I'd rather risk being shot every day than live in a police state. So, So anyway, we got to be ready on the short term. Keep those representatives aware. Yeah, we know that happened. Don't you get blinded. Don't you get influenced by that lady in California or those characters in Washington. Just keep the faith. On the long term, we've got to be working on that too. And all of us do that, I'm sure. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. We've got to continue to represent the shooting community in a positive way, be responsible, and share the hobby, as I'm sure you all do. Make certain that we talk about it. If you possibly can, share it, even with your colleagues. I know that some of you have jobs where maybe that's hard to do. You're in a very gun-unfriendly, perhaps, environment or something. But if you possibly can, that's part of representing the shooting community, I think, in a positive way. I've always tried to do that. And, I've been a teacher for a long time. I've been in a private education, so that's a little different. But I've never hesitated. I worked in publishing. In fact, a publisher right up here in Philadelphia. I was in the field. But I recall having a conversation at, I think it was Bookbinders or some restaurant here one day years ago with some folks that I worked with, and they made some crack about, you're in Tennessee, huh? Yeah, you got a gun rack in your pickup truck? They thought I was in the publishing world. Ooh, yeah. They thought that was a joke, and I wouldn't even have probably owned a pickup truck. Well, I said, yeah, actually I do. And it's the most convenient way to carry a shotgun or a rifle in a pickup truck, unless you have extended cabs. This was back before those were so popular. It's just a regular cab. And if you know what I'm talking about, a fishing rod or a long gun, there's no place to put it really conveniently. So I had to educate them a little bit right there. And they knew me. And hopefully everybody here has that going for you too. Your colleagues, your friends, acquaintances, your wife's friends who maybe don't know you all that well, but they know you're a good guy, you're a good gal. And then when they find out that you have guns or you are involved in a shooting hobby, then the wheels have to turn. Maybe if they thought guns were violent and bad and evil, well now Rodney's got a gun, he's a good guy, you know the drill. And we just win the hearts and minds a little at a time that way. So we got to represent shooters well. I'm going to try not to ramble. That's why I made notes for a change. I usually don't, but I didn't want to get off track. Last thing, teachers, as well as anybody, know that there's nothing more tragic than some of the things that have happened. I teach or taught, let's get used to using past tense. I taught in a really nice school with pre-K through 12. I've taught all levels, basically 6 through 12 at various times, but mostly in the middle school, 7th, 8th graders, 6th graders. And if you ever wonder why I'm crazy, there's the answer, right? Well, they're crazy too, and I out-crazy them. That's how I survived so long. But when I see those little kids in the cafeteria, I've talked about this in a radio show, y'all, many of you have children. I've met a lot of your children here today. Some of you watched the videos. In fact, I specifically told 2 or 3 of you to make sure you applaud when I said something that sounded stupid. Yeah, there's one of them right there. But I mean, they're just so cute. Those kids are just so cute. And I watch them walk through the cafeteria, the little 1st graders, 2nd graders, when we're over there eating with the older, more troublesome kids. And you just, yeah, when I think of Sandy Hook, I mean, it just chokes you up. I mean, they just can't stand, it's unthinkable, isn't it? It's unthinkable. And because we all know guns. We know what firearms do. That's what they're designed to do. It's why we have them. It's why we have a Second Amendment. But we know the damage that they do, and it just is unthinkable. However, all of us, I'm sure, base our lives on logic, because we're shooters, we're gun owners, we're supporters of the Second Amendment. That's why we're here. And we don't let that jeopardize our freedom. We can't let that jeopardize the Constitution. That's the short and dirty of it. We can't. There's going to be bad things happen. There's going to be crazies, especially if we don't get rid of these gun-free zones. But things will happen unless we live in a police state, as we all know, and we don't want to live there. We just have to do the very best we can. We cannot let our politicians, who are trying to do anything they can to appeal to certain groups, to get reelected, we can't let them jeopardize the Bill of Rights. It's that simple. And if you know my channel and our videos, I never say outrageous things, really, other than maybe stupid things, but I never use coarse language. We try to keep it family friendly, and we do keep it family friendly. We want these young people to be able to watch, and your 3-year-olds and your 6-year-olds and your 70-year-old grandmothers and everybody else to be able to watch. But I am going to say that with what's happened back here in this hall, when I think of our founding fathers and what they went through, and if we let these crazy politicians, these shallow thinking politicians who are only concerned about getting votes and being popular at the wine and cheese party, if we let them piss our rights away, we deserve it. That's all I've got.